progress.
I'd like to call the Town Council Committee of the Whole regular meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. Roll call, Councilor Burrell.
Here.
Councilor Bordelon.
Here.
Councilor Fitzgerald.
Here.
Councilor Good.
Here.
Councilor Jones.
Here.
Councilor McBride.
Here.
Councilor Merritt.
Here.
Councilor Pacino.
Here.
And myself, Mayor Parker. We have a quorum of 9. Calendar communications, Councilor McBride.
No communications this evening, thank you.
Councilor Good.
Approval of minutes?
No. Calendar and communications.
Oh, sorry. No communications at this time, sorry.
Councilor Fitzgerald.
Just this past week, I attended the Super Bowl and was really impressed by the turnout for it. I attended alongside some of the councilors who were volunteering, and I thought it was a great community event and look forward to participating in the future.
Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I, along with the mayor and Councilor Good, attended the Super Bowl on Saturday night. I want to give a huge shout out to our Public Works Department for plowing the roads and allowing about 75 people to come to the Super Bowl. It was a huge success. Thank you to all the restaurants. I think maybe there were 15 of them or so, somewhere around there. Soups were delicious. People had a good time, but we had a great attendance and just amazed at how many people could shovel out their driveways and get there on a sort of a freaky storm. I attended the event at Fitch High School on Friday. It was a very interesting event, and it was just really very interesting to watch the students react to what's going on in the world. And then along with Councilor Merritt and Councilor Burrell did the 3-on-3 meeting with the city, and where we look at their budget, they present their budget to us, or preliminary budget, their highway budget, then we kind of review it and have any questions, and that also went terrific. So thank you to the city and the cooperative nature we have between the town and the city. It's terrific. So thank you.
Councilor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have anything to pass today.
Councilor Burrell.
I have nothing else to add.
Councilor Bordelon.
Thank you. Just want to say, I received many communications from parents and some students regarding students at Fitch that wanted to peacefully protest in opposition of ICE, and just called, and just a lot of different people that were concerned or had questions. Also, I got asked recently to be on a mentor program for a survivorship program through Yale, so that was pretty exciting after the lunch conference I went to last Tuesday. I just want to thank the town manager. We were in communication over the last day or so. One of the clients that I was working with, who lives in Groton, I'm not going to say their name, was experiencing an eviction and homelessness, and had some misinformation, and was looking for some support, and we were able to do that. The good thing is that she was mainly caught up, and Human Services was able to offer her some food and a gift card, and she can come back maybe in March to help. So thanks to the town manager for your prompt connecting with that and getting the right person on the phone for her. So I do appreciate that. It went pretty smoothly, and they were able to go there today and get some help. Also spoke with the town manager, and a little bit. I've had some people address me about concerns on Paquonic Road in particular. Thank you to all the people who work for many years in public works and shoveling. I mean, we're in New England. We've had snow forever. It's always been a concern, always been a problem. It's not easy. So my comments don't have anything to do with the lack thereof or the quality. I know John Burt, the town manager, stated that we have short staff, but some people have reached out on Paquonic Road in particular. If you know the area, we have the Paquonic Village right there. A lot of people are disabled that live there, veterans that live there, and they have to walk to CVS to get their prescriptions, and they walk to the grocery store. One of the nice reasons for living there is to have the walkability. A lot of these folks don't have cars. happens to be someone on my way home if I go that way. I see a lot of people that have like little buggies and the carts to, you know, go shopping and do laundry or whatever they have to do. A lot of the sidewalks aren't shoveled. And again, some of those aren't town, you know, responsibility. But I did ask the town manager, how do we try to get the folks in that area? One of the things is just the Avery Monument. In front of that wasn't shoveled, under the bridge. And people are in the road because they still need to go to the store and shop. So just a lot of communication with that because, you know, this is the most vulnerable community and they really need to get out there. And they asked, Mystic, you know, we shipped out the snow, can we get some help over here? Like, how do we get these people that don't do what they're supposed to do to get it done because it's affecting their ability to take care of themselves? But I thank the town manager for triaging that too and explaining that process. Thank you.
Mayor, just to know, it was cleared yesterday, so I think it's all set.
Thank you. I will reach out to the folks who reached out to me. I really appreciate that because, you know, there was wheelchairs in the roads and definitely a safety concern. So thanks to the town manager. Thank you for your prompt response.
Thank you for Public Works and John Reiner.
Council Merritt?
Nothing.
Right. Okay. My turn. All right, thank you. I attended the legislature opening day and had the opportunity to hear the governor's stated address and meet other mayors. Attended the Fitch High School Town Hall and heard the concerns from the students. Thank you to Thrive 55 team and the businesses who provided soups and other items, because they did have a raffle that night. And the Public Works Department for clearing the snow. It was well attended, and I know I had a blast, so looking forward to next year. Received various communications about legislative updates and other community concerns. So Mystic Chamber and Union Baptist Church are hosting their Black History Month Voices Unbound at 10 a.m. on February 28th. They start off at the Mystic flagpoles first and then go up to the church. Please check Mystic Chamber's website. And Thames River Heritage Park is also handling a Black History event at the end of this month, at February 25th, as well as Groton Public Library hosting on next Tuesday evening at 6. That is all I have to report. Thank you. We are now on to approval of minutes. Counselor McBride.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes for January 27, 2026.
Second?
Motion made and second, motion made by McBride and seconded by Counselor Bordelon. Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That passes 9-0. We are now moving on to new business. Counselor Good, please take 2026-108 miniature liquor bottle funding, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item number 2026-108, miniature liquor bottle funding, trash compactors. Do you want the background, or?
Actually, Mr. Berry's going to do that. Could you?
Okay, so I move to recommend a resolution approving the purchase of 6 additional solar-powered trash compactors for the Parks and Recreation Department from the miniature liquor bottle funds.
Second, Pacino.
Motion made by Good and seconded by Pacino. I'm going to have Mr. Berry discuss it, and then we'll go to the vote after.
Sure. Good evening. First of all, I do want to start off by pointing out that, and I know the Parks guys would be upset if I didn't take this opportunity, they're also involved in snow removal and support Public Works and clear around a lot of the buildings. So kudos to John. He's doing a great job with the short staff, but I did want to point out that the Parks guys are also out there shoveling and assisting in plowing. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here to request funding for 6 additional solar-powered trash compactors. We currently have 4, and we'd like to add to that. These utilize smart technology, so they help save time, because we don't, well, for a couple of reasons. One, they're trash compactors, so it takes a lot more trash to fill it up. And two, with the smart technology, we don't have to go around and do a full loop every single time, you know, and like during the summer, we're emptying trash twice a week. So it saves us time, and time is money. We're proposing to purchase 6 more. And as I mentioned in the referral to the council, the council a couple of years ago had appropriated money towards the purchase. Towards the purchase of trash compactors. We didn't use all that money, so there was a balance left in there. The purchasing of 6 would diminish that money that's been allocated to the Parks and Rec Department. And then there's additional money in an unallocated fund from the miniature liquor bottles. And the balance left would be $28,577.56.
Okay, good.
Yes, ready for questions.
Counselor Pacino?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a reminder for those who are listening, where are the 4 that we currently have? And second part of the question, where are the 6 going that you want to purchase?
Sure. So the 6 that we want to put out are 2 more at Esker Point Beach, 2 at Farquhar, and 2 more at Pequannock Plains Park. Currently, there's 1 down at Esker Point Beach. There is 1 at Pequannock Plains Park. And just given the volume of use that those areas get, adding additional trash compactors makes sense. And then, Farquhar Park now has 2 basketball courts, 2 tennis courts that also act as pickleball courts. It's got a new playground, and there's a baseball field up there. So there's a lot going on, and we would like to put 2 into those locations.
Thank you very much.
Counselor Bordelon?
Thank you. I know this was something a while back before this when I first got on the council, it was something I had suggested. There was been many options, and, we voted for the initial trash compactors, which I think is wonderful. And I remember my comments when I was reviewing for tonight was, in Westerly, they had them. They had the recycle and the trash compactor next to each other, and I said, hey, why don't we have them? And then New London got them,
Yeah.
and we still didn't have them, so I thought this was a great way to do such, and I think they have been a success. And I feel, some towns have even done, like, the artwork on the side of them. They've gotten local artists that you
Yeah.
can actually, some places have done, made money where they've, like, people can advertise on the side of them. Again, that's down the road, just something I saw. But I'm excited to see this because our trash cans in downtown Mystic weren't very robust, kind of chained to the pole, and they've been there forever. I think they might be the original ones that I think I've seen for probably about 30 years even. They just were a bit of an eyesore too, and they weren't very functional. And as Mystic has grown, we need something to support. So I know we had brought up where you had said you were going to be putting these at one of our other meetings. Is there any talk of putting one further down, closer to DPI, in between that and port of call, or past the parking and the bathrooms? Because there's not one on that far end. That's my first question.
DPI is Daniel Packer.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, so we're focusing on putting the units within existing parks. I think Public Works has ordered, was it 17?
It's more for downtown Mystic mainly,
Oh,
to
it's
wrap
more for
that up, yeah.
downtown. Yeah, so.
With hopes of expanding from there in the future.
Okay.
So you're just, because of the Park and Rec side, you're just focused on the parks, which makes sense.
Yes.
Perfect, yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's a value to our town. I think it stands with the mission of being environmentally responsible, and obviously it cuts down on workforce power. So it's important, and it also prevents trash from, getting out and getting loose. It's a much more secure apparatus, so I just think it makes sense. I'm hoping to see them, even at the schools, like at Fitch High School would be nice, hoping Board of Ed will take the initiative and maybe put some down by the football field when things like that, so. But thank you for, hearing the cries and calls of, needing these and being forward-thinking, and I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. And just, we actually did wrap with art the original ones that we did, and we're currently have a call to artists right now to wrap the additional 6 units. And in this particular time, we've actually created an 18 and under category and reached out to the high school and to Grosso Tech to try to get students that maybe are artistically inclined to see if we can get them to submit something.
That was where I was going to go next.
Yeah.
And also, might be willing to reach out to the Navy base as well. They might want to do a military-themed one. I've seen
yeah.
that in one of the towns down in Baltimore, Maryland. They had one where some of the guys all did their like boat logos and submitted them, and they had like 6 different, names of boats with their emblems. It's kind of a fun way to include our Navy community.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. That's
just a
great.
thought anyway. But yeah, I'm
That's a
excited
good
to
idea.
see that you're going to do that with the arts. I think it's so important. So thank you.
Mr. Burt?
Just to mention, the beautification committee is talking about wrapping the ones in downtown Mystic. Once Parks and Rec gets through their process and we see who you select, who you use, we're going to provide that information to the beautification committee.
Council Good?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, that art program, there's it looked like I read there was a $500 prize. Is
Yes.
that for every design, or? is
No,
it
that's
just
for the ones that are selected.
the ones that are selected?
Selected and to be wrapped, yes.
Okay, how many
Well, the
prizes
deadline
are there?
isn't, well, there would be 6, because there's six units
Okay,
that we're purchasing.
okay, so it's for each.
And the deadline isn't until, I think, sometime in March.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Also, just out of curiosity, I know these are $6,500 for a garbage can. I've actually gotten quite a few questions. Have we heard about the success, any kind of reporting out of Mystic with the ones that we have, if they're earning their keep, so to speak, as far as keeping the area clean
Yeah.
and reducing labor?
Prior to his departure, I had talked with Greg Hanover, the former Public Works Director. He said it was saving a lot of time. And we're not connected up wireless, per app yet. Once these new ones go in, the intent is then to, once they're all, because with the other ones, you still have to go down there anyway, so it wasn't, a big deal. Now that they're going to be all changed over, they'll be on app, we expect a lot of savings.
Okay, all right. I just hope we could see update on that so that some of the people asking me questions can
Sure.
have an answer. Thank you, I appreciate it, that's all.
Any others? Council Bordelon for your second time?
Sure. Could you just tell me like where the contest is being posted at? Is it on the Groton Parks and Rec Facebook page, or where can people find it?
Yes, it's on the Facebook page and also Instagram, and I think I heard it was reposted, but I'm not on Facebook, and,
Yeah.
but I understand that it was reposted. Councilor Fitzgerald, you mentioned it was,
Yeah, stuff
No,
from the,
oh, sorry. It was reposted by a local business organization.
And is there any way to make sure it also goes on the town page too, just not the rec page through the mayor, through the town manager? Is there any way that we can like kind of segue it off, like copy it from the rec page onto the town page too?
Certainly, if you send me the link.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I think that's
Or
great.
have somebody else send me the link.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. Again, full support of it. I think it's I remember Mr. Barry, not Barry, Greg Hanover stating how beneficial it was. And I think it's great for parks and trails, especially since, those garbages aren't manned as much as, say, Mystic, for example. So it gives you guys more time and less manpower to do such. So, but yes, I'm excited for this. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Nobody opposed, no abstentions. That passes 9-0 to 0. Thank you, Mr. Barry. You're all set. We are now on to 2026-111, which is the missing middle housing opportunities presentation. And this does not have a motion on the floor. It's a presentation only at this point. And we have Director here, Mr. John Reiner. And
You want to do it here? You want me to jump right to it?
Yes, please.
Yeah, right there.
Good evening, everybody. John Reiner, Director of Planning and Development Services, and also for the time being, Acting Director of Public Works. Thanks, John, for mentioning in the last item about the work we've been doing, both Parks and Rec, helping us shovel and clear things, and our Public Works crew has been doing a lot of work with snow, and sorry to report we might be getting a little more snow tonight, so we haven't had snowfall like this in a long time and these types of temperatures. But not here to talk to you about snow tonight, wanted to talk to you about housing and our missing middle housing project. So in this presentation, we shared this with all of you before the meeting. There's a lot of slides, and there's a lot of detail on some of these slides because I'm not going to read each one word for word. I wanted this presentation to kind of live on as a document beyond just our conversation that we have today. So when people look at the presentation in the future, they're not scratching their heads of what do they mean by this? So some of the data is there, and this will be shared on our website moving forward. So let's see if this is not working. Let's see, one second. So I should start off, and I think in one of the slides, this was a project that was funded by the Department of Defense through a $350,000 grant for the town of Groton to look at missing middle housing. So we've spent a lot of time, excuse me, over the last few years talking about affordable housing, market rate housing, high-end housing, housing opportunities. You've heard us talk about a number of different housing analyses that we've done for the town of Groton over the past few years, looking at what is the market demand for housing in Groton, some zoning changes we had done back in 2019, and although that sounds like it was just a few years ago, we actually started that project in 2017. Those were adopted in 2019, and that was 7 years or so ago now. So, you know, how the time goes by. In this particular project here, we wanted to look at missing middle housing, which I can get this toggle to work in a second. I'll kind of describe to you exactly what it is. But it's not necessarily something that's affordable housing with a capital A, deed restricted and defined by HUD and other, you know, state and federal agencies, but that kind of lowercase a affordable housing, what is attainable to the average household. And it's something that we've actually kind of in many municipalities across not only Connecticut, New England, but the country, through our zoning regulations and ordinances, have essentially prohibited missing middle housing unintentionally. And to kind of give a little background on, you know, zoning first started and municipalities had the ability and the rights to do that. It was really tested back in the U.S. Supreme Court, I think it was 1926 or 27, the Euclid cases, which showed and gave municipalities the ability, it was upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court, to enact zoning ordinances and regulations to support separation of uses. And back then, what we were really thinking about at the municipal level was making sure that the pig slaughtering house was not next to your home. That was what really pushed a lot of zoning. Incompatible uses next to each other, not one housing style versus the next. But then over time, what ended up happening is zoning, and you can find this research anywhere, was used essentially as a redlining to kind of separate certain classes and types of people based on income, based on race. These are not new ideas and concepts, and it's very easy to see that out there. And often we still, the underpinnings of a lot of zoning and why we don't get the type of development that we want. Many of us have talked about wanting mixed use, walkable neighborhoods. Our zoning, no matter how hard we try, is still holding us back from that. All right. This isn't working. Maybe if I just use the toggle here. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so when we're talking about what is missing middle housing, it can be anything from an accessory dwelling unit to duplexes, triplexes, stacked flats, captain's houses, things along those lines. So stuff that we traditionally see in a lot of our older neighborhoods, like a downtown Mystic. And often missing middle housing, and when we start talking about these things, density, you'll hear me sometimes, is almost referred to as a four-letter word. It's almost, density, it scares people. It's like saying a swear word. And if you follow some of the stuff we've been doing on social media lately, I did a video talking about missing middle housing, and there's one particular house in downtown Mystic in a very residential area that the density on that lot is actually higher per unit than Sealy School, than Triton Square, in downtown Mystic, on a building that you think that is, as American as apple pie. And it's something that if you try to replicate those types of densities in other areas around town, they're prohibited and people are scared of the change of that. So again, affordability, we talked a little bit about this a few minutes ago, just where does affordable with a capital A versus lower A fall? And a lot of times this missing middle housing, it's smaller housing units, housing types, and things that can actually be affordable. When we look around Groton, yeah, there are houses down in Midway Oval that are for sale for $350,000, or I can get a 2,100 square foot raised ranch on Judson Ave that for $549,000, I think is listed right now. That's reality of housing prices, and that's not new stuff. That's not new stock. No, now I'm toggling between panelists.
He fixed your remote, I think, too. He said there.
Oh, let's see if that's what it does. When's John? Oh, hey, there we go. Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
So as we're looking at that naturally occurring affordable housing, kind of that lowercase affordable, as I was talking about before, versus actually deed restricted affordable. Again, definitions are there, people to take a look at later. And how did missing middle housing become missing? Zoning, as I was talking about before. Building and fire codes have just gotten more and more strict, so things have gotten more expensive and more difficult to meet. A lot of federal policies, as well as local opposition, which is not something to be underscored, to not be underscored. So zoning, our use regulations, our dimensional regulations, use conditions, and parking are all tools that in many times we use as items we want to protect and make sure things are done right, but these are also the very things that can then prohibit types of housing from being developed. Building and fire codes, some of the strictness of some of these codes on certain housing types, there are ways that we can look and work outside the box, but a lot of times these codes have unimplied or unintended consequences. Federal policies, loan policies, Supreme Court decisions, like I talked about that Euclid decision, although it paved the way for zoning, we could not be explicitly racist in our zone. It did create implicit racist zoning arms race. That's essentially what happened since that time, as well as a number of other policies that favored single-family housing over multifamily and missing middle. And then some of that local opposition that we were talking about. So you've all heard people refer to like NIMBY, the Not in My Backyard, some of the other ones that are out there, CAVE, Banana, or NOTE. So CAVE is Citizens Against Virtually Everything, build absolutely nothing anywhere near anything, and not over there either. Those are some of the terms that we use, and I know sometimes people get offended about this kind of stuff, but I want to be clear and open. We need to have dialogues about this, and we all understand that people are very protective of their homes and the values of their homes and want environmental protection. But many times, these very things that we think about is for protecting the environment and, community character are also the very things that limit housing production. One of the kind of examples I was thinking about is often when we downzone property, meaning reducing the amount of density in an area, nobody's calling for studies or analyses on the impacts of that, whereas there's been a lot of research showing that the downzoning actually just produces more sprawl, larger lawns, more fertilizer, more stormwater impacts, more traffic, more social problems and disconnection between communities. When we're looking to increase zoning, people want studies on watershed analyses, traffic, water, things that are incredibly expensive and very arbitrary to define, when some of it is just even giving the option to create certain zones and certain housing types. So when we look at the goals, preferences, and needs in Groton, both the 2016 POCD and our 2022 Affordable Housing Plan, which we worked on, talk about the need for housing in missing middle, preferences that we've received from feedback and doing a lot of outreach to the community, the need. So we've done housing market analyses in 2021, 23, and 25, and they've all showed drastic need for housing in Groton, and the reality that there's not a lot of vacant land that's suitable for high-density development or any type of, big subdivisions in town. So our affordable housing plan calls out the need for missing middle housing. Our POCD, our 2026 plan is looking to incorporate a lot of that and some of the feedback that we received over the time being into that plan. And we have been doing a tremendous amount of outreach and engagement with the community over the past couple of years. I think, a number of you, if not all of you, have seen at least one of our community conversations. We've been holding focus groups, trying to go where people are, doing surveys to hear what the needs are of the community, in addition to all the analyses that we've been doing to understand what the market needs are. And then looking at demographics, the changing, age and profile of who is in our community. And we're really hearing from people that we know folks don't love some of the larger multifamily developments that happen, but that's what's allowed in our zoning. What they're looking for is more of that kind of small scale multifamily, the infill development, which also is what kind of sometimes stirs people up because it's right in their backyard and they really see it. So what does the data say? It shows the share of different housing sizes, our aging population, and a shift away from our traditional single-family housing. Change in family household size, the number of seniors within households within the community. And then, as I mentioned, Camoin and Associates, as part of this Missing Middle Housing Project, updated our housing needs analysis. And they did it not just for the town of Groton, we also looked at the entire region, because we've been hearing, well, why does all the housing have to happen in Groton? What about the rest of the region? Why can't they take up their fair share? All of this is available on the town's website on our Greater Groton page, but that number in Groton ranges from what we need, depending on EB hiring and other demands within the region, between 4,100 and 5,500 units. The number came down a little bit from that last projection, but that was also, I think most of you probably read Sunday's article in the paper about EB this year hiring 8,000 people between here and Rhode Island. When I looked, and I think that article also referenced that today, there are 3,141 job openings in Groton at EB. That's a lot of jobs. EB is looking to add another 2,500 jobs to Groton this year and more to the region outside of Rhode Island. So that doesn't mean it's all going to have to land here, but that's a lot of pressure on the region for housing. That Camoin study also looked at that about 65% of the demand for that housing is missing middle housing. Missing middle housing is not something that is encouraged in much of our zoning regulations. And again, getting to the reality of things, lack of large vacant developed parcels, difficult sites, and infill opportunities. So again, what are we trying to do to address this? As I said, we started this Missing Middle project back in June of 2025. We're updating surveys, typologies, looking at sites, doing build-out analyses, trying to spread awareness and talk to people around the community, trying to listen to people in the community about what their desires and needs are, showing the community what these housing types are so that they understand what they are and what they're not, and looking at in the future, kind of our zoning and some things that we can do to start responding to this stuff. We have a Greater Groton site. We're also trying to incorporate a lot of this into our project, Groton 2035, which we're working on for a number of months. We're actually getting close to the end of our process for the Plan of Conservation and Development. And we have a whole team of consultants that are helping us on this project for the meeting in the middle. Again, this was fully funded by the Department of Defense. Looking at some of the regional supplies we've been looking at, again, I'd encourage you to check out the study. If you don't want to read the whole thing, there's kind of 10 highlights that go through with some good graphics and data. Looking at it regionally, we've heard a lot of concerns about how short-term rentals are, having such a big impact on our community and our housing. It's having an impact, but it's not as big as it's often made out to be, and really getting a good detailed look at development of what's happening in town. We're seeing that households are growing and population is declining. I've talked to council and others before. When we think about our household size has been declining rapidly since the 1950s. It's almost, I think since 1950, when we had about 4 people per household, by 2030-ish, we're going to have about 2 people per household. To house the same amount of people, the same population, we need double the housing, just because of shifting demographics, and we're seeing those trends continue. EB is driving a lot of growth in the region. Our population is aging at a faster rate than the rest of the region and the state. And the town's losing our missing middle housing while gaining single-family and higher density units. We're actually seeing people actually buy up duplexes. I spoke to somebody in town, bought a duplex in Mystic, and is only using it as a single-family house. They want to live in Mystic, but that's all that was available, so they bought that duplex, and half of it is staying vacant. Costs for housing have outpaced people's income, creating more affordability gaps. I know at the last council meeting, there's a lot of discussion about affordability and things that we can be doing in town. Nearly half of all renters in our community face a housing cost burden, more than twice at the rate of owners. And home ownership is also becoming increasingly inaccessible to people in median income households. You've heard me talk before about how Groton has 82% of its workforce that commutes here. And again, kind of looking at some of that regional demand, local and regional. So locally, somewhere between 4,100 and 5,500 units are needed in Groton. In the region, that number is somewhere between 17 and 18,480. That's a lot of housing units. And when I'm talking about the region, I'm not talking about all of our, council of governments planning districts. It's kind of communities within the drive district. If you dive deeper into the study, you'll see exactly which municipalities were included in there. And that the middle density or missing middle represent the largest share of total potential demand for housing in Groton. And again, what is some of the work we've been up to, mapping out these missing middle areas, looking at an inventory of the types of housing so people can see it and understand, oh, this isn't something that is incompatible with Groton, but there's missing middle housing all over Groton. I've actually had people argue with me that missing middle housing doesn't exist in Groton when there's an ADU that's right next to them, or a duplex in the next street over, or a triplex that they didn't even realize was multifamily housing. So again, different housing types. Some of these are in the town, some of these are in the city. Some of these are in downtown Mystic, looking at some of our, the development we're seeing. And, one of the things we often hear about is, well, why can't we just build accessory dwelling units? And those are going to solve all of our missing middle housing project, or missing middle housing numbers. This past year, I think we saw 12 or 14 accessory dwelling units built townwide. That's not going to solve our housing crisis. And the price to construct some of these accessory dwelling units, $300,000-$400,000+. Again, we're talking 1,000 square foot units. Some of them are very nice in what they're built and architecturally in downtown Mystic. Others, people are just trying to build something that's functional, on their house or on their property. Again, just some different varieties of some of these housing types that we've been looking at. You know, you've also probably heard us talk about cottage-style communities. We allow those in our zoning regulations. Unfortunately, in the 7 years they've been in our zoning regulations, no one's taken advantage of that regulation, which tells me we're still not hitting the mark on what's allowed, or maybe the standards on it are too difficult and developers can't make money doing it. So again, you know, we've been inventorying where missing middle is in Groton, and some of the districts around town, how that's overlaid. We have a website that we've launched to try to get people engaged in understanding this process and the data, because again, when we talk about housing types and changing density, people get scared. People are afraid of change. And this is something we're trying to work and hear from the community about this project and some of the things we can do. We've done walking tours in Mystic and Pequannock Bridge. We're shooting for another one later in March, again down in Mystic, helping people to see that a lot of this missing middle housing is actually in their neighborhoods and hiding in plain sight. If you keep watching some of the social media posts that we do, you'll see more pop up. A few weeks ago, we went down to downtown Mystic with hopes of creating, you know, 5 or 6 videos on some of our future social media on missing middle housing types and looking at different houses. And when we got back, I had 23 videos that we had made for the future. It's just so easy. It's also there. One of the most important things we can do as we start thinking about missing middle housing and how we can kind of move this initiative forward, not only is talking and hearing from the community, understanding what the community wants, looking at data, doing analyses, but then working some of this into our long-range planning documents, our policy document of the town's plan of conservation and development. And in chapter 1 of that draft document that's out there now, we talk about increasing the availability and affordability of homes while maintaining the overall quality and safety of the housing stock, you know, meeting environmental goals. We hear about concerns with things like stormwater. We have incredibly strict stormwater standards. But again, these are concerns that are always brought up to people. And, you know, one of the strategies is looking at how we can get multiple homes on a single parcel, similar to meeting our traditional development styles. Again, probably the single most important page or document in our plan of conservation and development, this thing right here, our future land use map, or the FLUM, the FLUM, that you'll hear us planners use too many acronyms about. And this is something that just sets a vision for what we could do. It doesn't mean we have to do it. And we often set general guidelines or varying densities and intensities about, well, we could do this, because if we want to make land use decisions and changes, those changes shall be consistent with our plan of conservation and development. And again, the last time we did a POCD, 2016, and the proposed flume that we had was really focusing on some of our residential densities and how can we start working missing middle into there, which would be done later if the plan was adopted through zoning amendments that would be really, you know, diving down and deep into the details. The fact that we've been able to do the level of analysis that we have so far on our plan of conservation and development is actually very rare. We're lucky that we've been able to get all these grants and be able to fund these studies to do this high level of analysis, which most municipalities don't get to do. And I do have to put on all of your radar, at the last Planning and Zoning Commission meeting last Thursday, we've been talking about missing middle, the need for housing, some of this density for the whole time of the project. And back in around September, we had put out there some of the densities that we're looking at for ranges within this future land use map. And at last week's meeting, the commission voted not to permanently as adoption, but to go back and utilize the same densities that we had at the 2016 POCD. So a lot of the work that we've been doing, a lot of the feedback that we've been getting from the community, again, focus groups, outreach, what we've been hearing, the commission wants more study, more analysis, and sorry if I'm being a little over the top on some of this stuff, but we really felt like we had the rug pulled out from us at the staff level. And sometimes we can get into the zone of paralysis by analysis. And I feel like that's what we're starting to get to in making some of these decisions. We do not want to make rash decisions, uninformed decisions, but when we're talking big picture vision, we have to start identifying that we have a housing problem in Groton. We have to find ways to solve it. And going back to the densities of where we were back in 2016, when we've been hearing from people and doing studies and analyses, that's not going to get us where we need to be. Moving forward, we're going to have a community conversation at the end of this month, going over a lot of the same data that we went over tonight. We want to get this information out there. We want people to understand it, to ask us questions, to have good dialogues about this stuff. As I said, another walking tour in Mystic in March, and a public meeting at Thrive 55 on March 26th as well, and then moving a couple months out from there, kind of tying some of that into what the work we'll be doing on our POCD. You'll be hearing over the next couple of months about some of the public hearings that we'll be having to adopt that plan. So happy to entertain any questions, discussions, some QR codes up there if people want to check out the websites, any of the documentation on this. Again, we're trying to be as super transparent and open as possible as we can on this project, and we want to give enough information, the proper information, within reason and budget to the decision makers on this. So thanks for letting me talk about this, and happy to answer any questions.
Council Merritt?
Yes. On your chart on page 49, what do you mean by a transportation hub?
Do you know which slide number that was?
It's a draft of land use map,
It's like the second to third.
POCD alignment,
Right near the end.
right there.
This one here?
Yeah. What do you mean by transportation hub?
And is that in the map?
Yes, it is.
So the transportation hub, that actually, okay, we're looking at the Route 1 district. So that is where the state had looked at a transit-oriented development and trying to have rail improvements in Groton for commuter rail. So that downtown Route 1 area was an area targeted for that.
Be nice if the state would share this with us.
So that was a study that was done 3-4 years ago, I believe, that we had seen, we had discussed a number of years ago, and we're waiting on the next steps from the state on that project. And this was also something as we're looking at the Connecticut Redevelopment Authority, and then maybe helping us in that Route 1 corridor with some changes in the future and some funding options.
That will require a lot of parking, correct?
Depending on what is proposed and what's there, many times if you see a commuter rail spot, we'd probably see a parking garage going along in with something like that.
And taking of properties that are already occupied?
Or the sale or the integration of that parking garage into private properties and development along those lines. Often, we'd be looking to do this consistent and with private property owners.
No, we've already got that coming with the roundabouts. The roundabouts will take private property.
Councilor Merritt, can we just stick to the housing?
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm just forewarning ahead of time.
I know, but not for discussion tonight. Thank you.
All right.
All set, sir? Any other? Actually, Councilor Jones?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Director Reiner. Terrific. Can you just give me, I know it says in here sort of a need for about 5,000 units of housing. Let's just say they're housing. Can you just tell me how big an area that is? Is Fieldcrest that 5,000? I just don't know, looking at available land, how big a piece of land would 5,000 houses fit on?
So I don't think we're looking to just put 5,000 houses in one area. So when you think of Triton Square, that's about 306 units. A lot of studios, one bedrooms, a few twos in there. The proposed project on Gold Star Highway, that was some town excess land that we'd gotten through foreclosure and the Shetucket plumbing land. That's going to be a little over 400 multifamily housing units. When we start looking at single-family neighborhoods, you see a much lower density of, you know, 1 or 2 units, 3 units per acre versus something like, you know, what might be proposed at Pleasant Valley School was at around 16 acres and maybe 300 or so units. We haven't seen the exact designs. Those are just approximates there. So, you know, the multifamily on that end, you can see at a high density. That particular lot that was in Mystic I was talking about, it was over 20 units an acre, and from afar, it almost looks like just a big single-family house.
So to kind of do this, it's probably leaning a little bit more towards like apartment buildings and that kind of thing than single-family.
Not necessarily towards single family, but that's where the 65% of the demand really falls in that missing middle housing. So that's where could we have some more accessory dwelling units, infill of duplexes, triplexes, or captain's houses, which often those, you can design those with very strict design guidelines. So when we talk about things in our plan of conservation and development, again, it's that kind of big picture vision, 30,000 feet looking down. When we get to our zoning regulations, well, we can say, well, you know, in a single-family neighborhood, you can put potentially multiple buildings on a lot, but your overall lot coverage still has to be 30%, which is what it is in that zone today, even if you put a single-family house. And then you can just get creative in your design, because I think often we think single-family homes, a 3 or 4 bedroom house, whereas really in that change in demographics, if you can build a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot structure and have 5 units in there that range in size from, you know, a studio at 750 square feet, a 1-bedroom unit at 1,000 square feet, or, you know, smaller, bigger, and you can get creative with the size and the design. But right now, a lot of builders, it's nope, you get 1 unit per lot, and I have to maximize that, so I build a bigger house, as opposed to getting creative with the types of units that we can actually build in there.
So did the move, and I've been watching some of the meeting from planning and zoning, that's sort of the direction that they're now going, and one going back for analysis is sort of put this to the side for the time being?
I think so. There are a lot of questions that came up around needing to do more analyses on water availability, stormwater impacts, sewer availability, roadway capacity and infrastructure. And those are often things that we look at within, when we do and propose zoning regulatory amendments and zoning map amendments. With that said, in the baseline report of our plan of conservation and development, if you have the time to go back and look at that, you'll see that we have adequate water capacity in the town. We have adequate sewer capacity within our sewage collecting system. A lot of our major roads can handle more traffic. We're not going to propose a 300-unit apartment complex in a neighborhood that is very small, undersized roads. It doesn't make sense. That's not consistent with good planning practices. So, you know, and again, kind of stormwater analyses, that's done at the time of an application, because it costs a lot of money to design and engineer these types of projects. We can't do a lot-by-lot stormwater analysis for the whole town. Our budget wouldn't carry that. And again, some of these same types of analyses, and again, I'm not trying to be cheeky when I talk about paralysis by analysis. That is often what happens. And it's not just us. It's many municipalities throughout Connecticut, New England, the country, grappling with these same problems, talking about missing middle housing, and how do we meet the needs of our housing demand, and starting to think a little bit outside the box, or more traditionally to how development was done.
If we don't supply this housing, I'm assuming that the housing is going to go to neighboring communities. Do you have a sense of our neighboring communities? Are they going down the same path that we're going, or are they looking at this as opportunity to kind of grab some of this stuff?
So some of our surrounding municipalities are, I think in that same article about EB, they were talking about all the housing growth in Stonington. They were talking about housing growth in New London. They really weren't talking about a lot happening here. And although we've seen a number of things permitted, we haven't seen a ton of building permit applications getting pulled. Yep, we've seen Triton Square get built. There's some additional units that were built where the massage school was on Route 1. We're seeing there's some things up on Route 12 that are under construction right now. But some of the larger projects that we've recently approved, we still haven't seen building permits yet. So, and even, you know, as you've all heard me talk about this before, once a permit's pulled, it might be 24 or more months until that development is done and certificates of occupancy are granted and people can start moving in there.
Do you have a sense, I noticed you marked in here the seniors, and we have a high percentage of seniors in Groton. Do you have a sense of what's keeping all the seniors either in their houses or not moving into, is it a lack of housing to go to, or is it they just love the community so much they don't want to leave, or?
Well, there's a few things. So one, it is seniors that grew up here, moved here, they want to stay here. This is their town, their community. And this is not unique to Groton. The neighborhood that I live in was built in 1980 to 82. There's a number of people in their houses that were original buyers, single-person households now, whether divorced, widowed, what have you, they can't afford to go somewhere else. And there's not that one-bedroom type of place that is single-level living that they can go to and that they need help from. I mean, before tonight's meeting started, I got a call from my next-door neighbor who called me looking for help because he fell in his home. I had to call my wife and kid and say, go help our next-door neighbor who lives in a 2,500-square-foot house with stairs all by himself. This is a problem that we have created through our zoning regulations. And this is happening all over the place, that people are living by themselves in houses that are too big, on lots that are too large that they can't maintain, and we're not allowing the creation of smaller housing types, easier access to these things to make it affordable for people to build it. It's all of our fault and the things that we've done through zoning and over-regulation and not understanding how traditional neighborhoods that we all love and value. I mean, everyone loves downtown Mystic. We want those walkable mixed-use areas. When we think about the places we vacation that jump out at us is, wow, look at these walkable areas, and what they have is often density. And it's done in a great way with design standards and things that we can do and adopt, but we haven't enabled that in enough areas. We've done it through our MVC, our mixed village center, our mixed town center zoning, but we haven't really seen a lot of development happen in those areas to meet those standards because it's just a few property owners own it, or it costs a lot of money to do this redevelopment. So we got to try this from a number of different angles. And, you know, if we make changes to allow this stuff, I do not expect a tsunami of new development applications for duplexes. Similar to our accessory dwelling units, we see 12, 14 of them a year. We'd probably see a lot less if we allowed more duplexes and triplexes per year, but over time it would start chipping away at it because there's no one silver bullet to solve this.
All right, thank you.
Council Good?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the mayor, I'll concur with your interpretation of the previous planning and zoning. I was a little shocked myself after the last nearly 2 years of watching all of the public hearings, the zoning commissions, the work with the POCD or Project 2035. And I was maybe overly optimistic that we would be able to get this in. I know where I live, the neighborhood I live in, military housing. I speak with many of my neighbors are military with plans of staying in the area. And when, especially during campaign season, speaking with a lot of them about the missing middle housing concept, there was a lot of buy-in. Because right now, there's not a good chance for a lot of these people who want to stay in the area and work at the boat to be able to afford a house. I mean, right now, I think the base house, your income to get a mortgage would have to be $115,000, which may not seem like a lot to some people, but I know a lot of people who've, just getting out of the Navy after 5 years and going to the boat, that's pretty heavy, especially with children. So I'm very concerned. I'm wondering how permanent is their decision not to move forward on that? I know, for instance, this summer There was a little tour group that went through the water treatment plant, and within 10 minutes, you realize that the worst drought in the last 2 decades, Groton, while all surrounding towns were at 20% reservoir, Groton was over 70%. We have a valve in the middle of the river, and if New London runs out of water, we can supply them. So I'm just wondering, what would it take to get this back on the table to planning and zoning? What kind of community outreach do we need to do to maybe have them realize that how important this is?
So that was a vote by them for the draft document to go back to where we were for the future land use map for that 2016 draft as it relates to residential densities. That's not the final decision. They still need to send that document out for referrals to other, the COG, to state agencies to get impact review. We then put it out for public hearing, and there will be public comment. And one of the tricky things is we see who shows up at our meetings. A lot of times, it's very familiar faces, and I'm usually not quite as direct with some of this stuff, but I just kind of want to put it out there. We see a lot of the same people. We hear consistent themes from folks, and there's a lot of people in this town of almost 39,000 that we don't hear from. And what we've been trying to do over the past couple of years is reach out to those groups, do focus groups, meet with housing advocates, people that support homelessness, and push some of those efforts, meeting with our pastors that communicate with a lot of people around the community and others to understand what are the needs from the people we're not hearing from. What do those other, 38,500 people in Groton think, and trying to work some of that into it. But most of them don't show up at our meetings. And most of the people that show up at our meetings we look at Mystic and Noank, Groton Long Point. We see a good contingent from them talking about some of our land use decisions. Not saying that they're the only people, because we do hear from others when issues arise about certain neighborhoods or certain developments. But we, on a lot of these longer range planning projects, that's who we often hear from. And that voice of the people who you're hearing from often goes underrepresented in a lot of long-range municipal planning documents, not just in Groton, but in most suburban communities like us.
Thank you.
Councilor McBride?
Question through the mayor. I just was wondering, the grant that we received a couple years ago, was that helping with any of this missing middle? Was it like the community challenge grant? Was it 8 million? Is that being utilized to help out with some of these issues?
So that grant is actually a little bit on hold right now. That's a different one. That's a different grant. There was a few $1 million earmarked in that grant to actually build some affordable housing, working with the Groton Housing Authority and with some of their recent challenges. That money is still on hold. We've gotten the ability from the state to kind of hit a little pause on that project, but without the housing authority building those units, we lose that whole grant, because there was some other funding that went to a number of things in the Pequannock Bridge area, some infrastructure improvements, the walkways, the boardwalk, as well as some other things.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything we can do to try to help that along? Because that seems like a large amount of money we don't want to lose.
Without the housing authority being able to build their development, we're kind of stuck. That's what it's really hinged upon.
Okay, thank you for that
Yeah.
explanation.
And we often get questions of why aren't we doing more work with the housing authority? They have some things they have to work out, and they only have so much capacity. And that's something we're seeing at a regional and state level of a lot of the housing authorities and the groups that partner with them to help them develop some of our CDBG funding, our housing rehab loans. There's not enough inspectors and people to actually process some of this stuff. And later this month, we're going to come talk to you about that and some of the challenges that we're having.
So we can't refine the grant to another use of some sort? Didn't think so, but thought I'd ask. Okay, thank you.
And unfortunately, the housing authority is permit approved, planning and zoning commission approved for, I think, at least one building of 50 units. It's shovel ready, but again, we need them to kind of get things off the ground. And I know they're trying. I know they're doing a lot of work to get things straight. They have some good consultants on board to help them manage this stuff, but it's just taking some time.
All set?
Yes, thank you.
Councilor Fitzgerald?
I appreciate the presentation. I recognize the need for missing middle housing. I live in unit that you would define as missing middle housing, and one of the things you mentioned was addressing like social isolation, and I find that density builds for a stronger neighborhood where people know their neighbors and just has a better flow to it. And so I encourage this style of housing. But it jumps out to me on one of the slides, it's listed as 45, how the small amount of land in town that you can even build 2 units on a lot, let alone the 3 to 4 that would significantly cut into that 5,000 unit expected need.
Yeah.
One question I have is, while a portion of this is managed by the Planning and Zoning Commission, what are some things that town councils, both regionally or across the country, have done to address their housing crisis? Or I suppose potential action items that we could use with evidence of our need to address it from our body?
So I think what the council is doing with excess properties and looking at that for future uses, that's a great way of moving forward. Funny, before coming to Connecticut, every municipality I worked in prior, the town council actually adopted the zoning. And that was something new to me when I came to Connecticut, that here we have a planning and zoning commission that does it, and that the council's not involved in the policy for that. There are probably some other things that you can do, but really the major land use committee is our planning and zoning commission. They adopt our plan, they adopt our zoning, they then approve the zoning. There are other things that we can do to kind of set the table. We have TIF districts, which unfortunately haven't been utilized yet, and there's other incentives that we've brought to the council that they've adopted and moved forward, but it hasn't quite primed the pump, because the biggest kind of key to setting the table for future development really is your zoning.
Thank you.
Mr. Burt?
Just to quickly mention, I believe at our next meeting, we'll be talking about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So we'll be starting discussions on programs we might be able to undertake in the future.
All set.
Council Bordelon?
Thank you. This is definitely something near and dear to me, and, I appreciate your presentation. From the planning and zoning perspective, I think that's one angle to look at, and I appreciate your angle. I mean, my opposition has nothing to do with you or against you, it's my own opinion, and what I've heard from other community. So first off, sometimes the times of these meetings for people, when you're talking about that middle class forgotten groups, a lot of people can't go to a 4:45 meeting, can't go to a 5:45 meeting, and can't make it to a 5:30 meeting. I know for myself, when my kids are in the house, I work till 5, and then I'm running to get them from T-ball to baseball to soccer to trying to put dinner on the table. So that's something to think about. A lot of people who have, well, I say traditional jobs that are working the 8 to 9, 9 to 5, they need either later than that or they need like weekends. So that's just something to think of, to try to bring in a more diverse population. Look at the military community. As a person who graduated from Fitchburg, like some of my other council members, and like some of my other council members, been military family. My husband served as well as we were local, so I lived in military housing. I lived around the population, went to school with the population, and still now with my son serving, he is still that population. And I went to a gathering, the boat deployed recently, and we were at Trident Square, and there I was, hanging out in their big flex room, looking around, and the guys were like, yeah, we're paying $3,000 for a 2-bedroom. And they have 2 guys and they're splitting it, but it's just not affordable, $3,000. But I also was part of the group that was part of the whole BRAC commission, where the base was gonna be shut down, and, EV was like laying off in the 80s. I don't know how many people, dads I know, that says, oh, I left EV when they laid me off. I was afraid to go back. I'll never go back because they might lay me off again. So people get nervous, or, from what I hear, they don't want to build everything on the backs of the hope of these building of submarines, and then something can change. I understand, I don't think our town should take all the burden of building the housing, because that's not the only thing that attracts people here. My father-in-law served 20-something years, retired as an E8 in the Navy. He chose to live in Montville at the time. He bought a 2-acre piece of land, built his house. He still lives in that house. He's by himself. My husband's one of 5. He's got a 5-bedroom house. He's a firm believer, why do I want to sell my house? It's not because there's not something else to go to. He doesn't want to. He loves his home. So we got to remember those people too. Not everybody wants the downsize. As, old people, most people buy their house and kind of make sure they have a bedroom on the main floor and they can just stay there and they have room for grandkids and people to visit. So we have to remember that there is a section of people that buy their home with the intention to stay for the long haul. And that has nothing to do with the planning and zoning. Like I said, we constantly encourage them like, hey, Pops, this, almost $3,000 home and 181-year-old man is a lot of space with 2 acres, but he loves it. And he's staying in his home because he's set up all the amenities in that house. And affordability, he's already invested in it. I'll wait for my second turn to finish.
And one of the things I'd like to think about often is choice. And I've heard a lot from this council about we need housing affordability. And when I think about choice, I can find a car in any color, multiple price points, low cost, mid cost, high cost. I don't have that same level of choice when it comes to a house and finding and buying a home. And nobody is saying you have to sell your home, you have to move. But when I don't even have a choice to downsize, when it's almost impossible to find a home for a growing family so that maybe the kids don't want to live with mom and dad anymore. Right now, in this region, there is a huge lack of choice.
Okay, Counselor Good for a second time?
Thank you, Madam
Oh,
Mayor.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Could I take a first timer?
Absolutely.
All right. Counselor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Quick question. On page 48, it's the POCD alignment. It shows in the picture. I'll give you a couple of seconds to get that up. Hey, there. Oh, there you go.
Yes.
DADU, what is that?
A DADU? It's
Yeah.
a detached accessory dwelling unit. I didn't even, a
Detached.
detached accessory dwelling unit.
Okay, and then there's the AADU in the light blue in the bottom. Or the blue.
I think that's the, let me think about that one for a second. I'll get back to you on that one.
All right. And my other question is, how many properties in Groton would be eligible for ADUs?
So right now, the majority of properties, of single-family properties in town are eligible to build an ADU. Interestingly, we've had questions from members of the community of, I need to see a build-out analysis of every property in town building out an ADU. That's not reality. We're not going to see every property in town build out an ADU, and at our current rate of even on the high end of 14 accessory dwelling units per year, it's going to take us a long time to get to that point. Some people don't want an ADU on their property. Nobody is forcing an ADU on a property. Nobody's forcing a duplex or a triplex. It's just giving people the option to downsize, build different things. I might want an ADU for a rental, or I might want an ADU for my kids to live in, or maybe it's an ADU that I move into as I age and my kids can take over my house. But those are all options that we have now today within our zoning regulations.
Those are all options that have been running through my head, too.
Yeah.
So is the amount of ADUs on a property something that is square footage related?
Yes. So it has to be smaller than the primary structure, and I think our maximum is about 1,000 square feet for an ADU.
So well, obviously in this picture, you could actually have 2 ADUs.
According to that, possibly, that is not allowed currently in our zoning regulations.
Understood. All right, thank you. I'm good.
Counselor Bordelon for a second time? Oh, I'm sorry, I called Good. I'm sorry, your second time, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just real quick, who funded this study?
This study here was by the Department of Defense.
Department, and what do you feel like their interest is in funding a study on housing in Groton?
So we have been working with them on the compatible use plan, the joint land use study, and other longer range plans with our Council of Governments looking at the compatibility of the base and what's also driving, the activity at the base, electric boat, general dynamics, jobs, and the need for housing in the region. We made a proposal to them that we'd like to study this because we see the growth at EB excuse me, and one of the things, most municipalities don't have a projection of what their job market's gonna look like for the next 10 years. We have a pretty good projection on job market in Groton, 10, 20-plus years out. At some point in time, could things change with EB again? It certainly could. But even outside of EB, and if you look at the data and that housing market analysis, it's not all driven by EB. It's also, this is a great community. People want to live here. And other presentations I've given in the past, if we don't create more housing, what happens is those with the means, with the income, are going to start buying up our missing middle housing, which I saw happen in Mystic, had a conversation with somebody about it. They moved from another community, bought a duplex in Mystic, and their long-range plan is to take that duplex and turn it into a single family. And we see people buying other missing middle or lower priced, low capital A affordable housing, and then sinking a whole lot of money into it to make it what they want because the $700,000 house or more that they wanted wasn't available. I'm not proposing we only build $700,000 homes in town, and yes, Triton Square apartments are expensive, but unfortunately, some of that is construction costs right now. And with the cost of land, utilities, materials, and labor in New England, in talking with developers, even building 1,600 square foot starter homes are running $500,000. Until if nothing changes, then nothing changes.
Exactly. And I'm just going to conjecture a little bit. I mean, the concern with the Department of Defense with EB growing is if there's no housing for workers, there's no workers. If there's no workers, then contracts do not get fulfilled on time. If contracts do not get fulfilled on time, contracts may end. It's a long-term gain, I think, and I think it's very important that we keep this concept alive. I know the subbase is having a presentation next week with some of their ideas of needs from the region, not just Groton, of course, but the region. And I have a feeling that housing in Groton is going to be a large concern of theirs. I appreciate it. Thank you. That's all.
Council Bordelon? Thank you. The big thing is, I get it, the zoning, right? I mean, it might be antiquated in some ways. But the thing is, Groton can't take it all in the backs of our own town. You're not gonna, just because you build it, they're gonna come concept. Not everybody wants to live here. I mean, I'm talking to some of the military families, and they're like, no, we want to be further out, more wooded. We're thinking East Lyme, Old Lyme. We want to be on the Rhode Island border. Like, so they're still going to come work here. Just like our town employees don't all live in our town. We still attract people from elsewhere. They don't live here, play here, work here. That's okay, right? They're still part of the group, the team. So it doesn't have to necessarily be all of Groton. And some people may not want to necessarily be here. Other things that people look at is also the schools, how they're being funded, and what the school has to offer that can fit the needs of their children. So I don't care if you got the house that I want, the Dyer home, the next step, if I had kids, I'm looking at, like, what's the grades? You know, what's the concept? What's the long haul? I'm also a person that's worried about the environment. What environmental things are in place? What are the park accessibilities? Like, there's other things that drive it. But the concern is, if 10 years down the road, yes, we're gonna have a huge job growth, and then that sinks off, we also don't wanna have a bunch of places, which I could name some towns and cities that have done this and built it off of, you know, the concept of all this growth, and then that growth dies down, and then the town is ghosts with these places where people are leaving to find jobs elsewhere. We have to be building it based on a bigger plan and a bigger concept, just outside of the growth of the one major employer in the area. That's my only concern, because if that was to dry up, what are we left with? A bunch of vacant homes? People are gonna all be leaving to go elsewhere to that other town that has a major employer. So my concern is, we need to make some changes that fit, but we have to be careful about how fast and how big we're changing it. And I can understand that concern too. So again, I can understand if you don't have this, people won't, but then again, some people just don't want to leave their home. Some people don't want to be in dense housing. I mean, I'm even realizing my place is a little more dense than I thought. Originally, I was like, oh my God, I don't want to live out by myself. If I'm by myself, it's kind of scary, you know? Now my vision is, I want a neighborhood, but I want nobody behind me, no one on the left or right of me, and I want to be a little more further out. So I've even considered like, okay, I can put this one on the rental market and go find something else that's a little bit more spread out. I'm finding as I'm getting older, I want a little more room with the neighbors close by, but I also want to sit in my backyard, talk on my phone, and not hear my other person on their patio either. So it depends on the person. It's good to have a both mix, but we also have to come up with some incentive plans. Before changing our planning and zoning, we have a ton, I'm not saying we shouldn't change some of it, we have a ton of vacant buildings, you know, the former Benny's Plaza, and many other places that aren't even being utilized. So that's my concern. Why are those places just sitting? Because they're great places to build that type of development. Thank you. And thanks for your presentation.
You know, to kind of quickly talk about our downtown Route 1 area, we have set the plate with every incentive imaginable. We have high-density mixed-use zoning, we have our tax increment financing district, but just as I can't force somebody to sell their home, I can't force them to develop their land. And if they're happy with the development that they have, the lease rates that they're getting, the density that they're at, it's going to stay that way. So the same goes with zoning. So even if we adopted large-scale changes to our zoning regulations that allowed duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, captain's houses in every residential neighborhood that had access to sewers, well, if, you know, all 9 of you that own single-family homes, if you all owned, which I know some of you rent, said, I don't want to change anything on my lot, well, then nothing's going to change, and nobody's going to force you to change it. But if we don't give people the option to address it, then, again, nothing changes. People have the option to buy a small car or a big car, but there's not a lot of places to say, oh, I want to sell my house and then move to that larger lot. Some people want a larger lot, some want a smaller lot. We moved 4 or 5 years ago. The only place I could get had a lot too big. Now, I don't enjoy how much time I spend mowing that lawn. But as a commuter, because there are some people that work here, myself, that don't live here, unfortunately, and because of Long Island, there's no waves in Groton, so I got to live in Rhode Island so I can surf. So that's really what drives me to commute here, sorry. And, you know, that's where my family's from. But it's, in all reality, there's going to be different things that drive different people and where they want to live. But right now, we're not even giving the opportunity for choice. And a lot of that is driven through our zoning. We can't force people to do things, but at least give them the opportunity.
Okay. Looks like nobody else has anything. I want to thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Take a second turn.
Okay, Counselor Jones, and then after that, Counselor Fitzgerald.
I'll just give a comment from the senior point of view, that there's very little for seniors to move to, and a lot of it is very expensive. So looking at, you know, even when, you know, we're not that far away, and I know a lot of people now who are starting to go into the Stone Ridges and the Fairviews and those kind of places, and it's very expensive, you know, over $500,000, closer to $1 million to go into any one of those places. So the options of trying to find that kind of housing is very difficult. And I also know, too, we noted, you know, we bought a property here in Groton. We now realize we didn't get a sidewalk, and sidewalks mean walking. You know, we live on Flanders, and it's, a lot of people walk on Flanders, but it's, you're taking your life in your hands, and it's very wide, but also there's nothing to walk to. So those are 2 things, you know, as we sort of look at the next step, that sidewalks and some kind of amenity that you walk to. But it's very limited here, and it's very difficult to move out of your house because there's nowhere to go, basically. It's very, very difficult. So it's, as you're sort of planning that, to get the seniors to move, to get other people to move into the senior housing, it's just a challenge to do anything in this local area.
Yeah.
So.
And one of the difficult things, you know, when you look at more density, what happens is you then have more people per land area to help pay for some of the infrastructure of a sidewalk or a bike path or some of those other amenities, or clearing and shoveling snow. But when you have long stretches with not a lot there, it's fewer people paying for the maintenance of and the installation of those types of sidewalks. So our low density areas, we know people walk there, but when you look at the price per linear foot of that sidewalk per how many people it serves versus that same sidewalk in a higher density area, you're getting a lot more kind of bang for the buck. So that's something that we often see. And again, not every neighborhood needs to be a super high density area, but we can target things and look at how could we get density where there's infrastructure, sewer and water. And those are kind of the areas where it makes sense to push some of this stuff.
I really appreciate the data you included, both from the missing middle housing survey as well as the housing study that you supplied, and tying it together with your comment on analysis or paralysis by analysis. It reminds me of this book I read that came out about a year ago called Abundance by Ezra Klein, and the focus, it seems like, if we just try to do everything, we end up with a product that doesn't really deliver what we need. And it seems like, just based on the data, we have evidence of the demand and the impact it has on our population. And it's really calling us to bias towards action while we recognize the need for, and we all recognize the need for preserving the environment and making sure that our roads aren't overloaded, and preserving the capabilities and the capacities of our infrastructure. We also have to step into building the community that we want to live in, and bias towards action and addressing this problem with purpose. And so I really appreciate the data that your office has been producing, because it sheds light on the impact both for our larger economy, but for individual residents. I suppose in closing, I really hope that the council can work together to address this problem.
Last comment, funny, you're the second person in the last 3 days that's mentioned the book Abundance to me, so I think I need to read that book. And, one last thing, you're talking about the data and the housing study. So we first did our first housing market analysis in 2021. And then we were questioned about, well, you know what, that was from COVID. That was the COVID bubble. We don't think these numbers are actually accurate, and I dismissed this data. We heard that from members of our Planning and Zoning Commission. So we updated it, and the numbers actually went up. And then we still heard questions of, I don't believe the data, or why didn't you look at it from a regional level? Again, just asking for more analysis and not actually trusting the numbers that were there. So we did the numbers again. We saw there were some changes in secondary hiring with EB or outside of EB because of changes in the economy. So some of those numbers came down a little bit, but it gave us that regional impact too. So it's not just all on the backs of Groton, but the region has a major housing shortage. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So what would you like us to do? Or how can we help?
So look at you don't have to read the whole plan of conservation and development, but look at it. Check out the draft, see what's going on, and if you have comments or concerns as members of the town or the community, you can let our Planning and Zoning Commission know about them. Maybe it's something that if your ideas and policies are different from the direction of the Planning and Zoning Commission, maybe schedule a meeting to sit down with them and talk to them about what the council's goals are for housing, affordable housing, and how we can get there, so that they're maybe on the same page with all of you. Or at least they're hearing from you, and you hear from a very wide constituency all over town. And even not the nine of you don't all agree or have the same direction and policy, but at least if there's a general direction or, what we're looking for, that might be something that's helpful.
So we can also share your information that you've posted tonight once you put it on the website.
Yes, please.
And if anybody has concerns, they can email you or email the council too, and Mr. Burt with their concerns if they feel, or call us if some of us have our numbers out there, and get that information to you. Thank you for this. I know it's a lot of work, and I appreciate everything you guys have done with this program so far.
Thank you. And one other thing you can all do, I'm not trying to become an influencer on Instagram or Facebook, but if you can share our Explore More Groton page, some of the posts that we're doing, we're trying to get a wider audience, because we understand not everybody, can make a 4:30 or 5:30 meeting, but if they can see what we're talking about in some of these things and get through some of these engagement platforms like Greater Groton that we have, we want to engage with the youth, although the youth really doesn't play on Facebook. That's, people of our generation. But Instagram they get. I'm not on TikTok yet. That's not one I'm really planning on playing in. But at least, please, in all seriousness, if you can share some of our posts, help get them out there, because we're trying to hit a lot of topics around planning, economic development, shoveling snow and not parking on the roads during storms, but, trying to hit a lot of things for people in the community. So thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to talk tonight.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to ask for a recess before we go to our third item. It is 8:01, and if we can be back here at, I'm going to say 8:07, I'll give everybody 6 minutes this time.
So generous.
2025-293, Groton Heights Property Sale Review Committee, finalist recommendation for preferred project concept and development team with the potential of executive session. So Mr. Reiner and Ms.,
Yes,
could you please?
sure. So,
Thank you.
John Reiner, Director of Planning and Development Services.
Corinne Piazza, Economic and Community Development Manager.
All right, so we're going to give a brief overview in open session, kind of just updating people on where we are with the Groton Heights process. It's been a number of months since we've been before you talking about this stuff. So again, just want to kind of give you an overview of where we are now, the PSRC meeting objectives, some of the next steps, and then again, why we go into executive session for these types of matters. We've gone over this before when we did Pleasant Valley and for Groton Heights, but again, it's been a number of months, so we just kind of want to refresh this stuff. A lot of this information very duplicative of what we did for the Pleasant Valley School. There's a website that has a lot of this background information. So you've seen this chart here before, and again, just kind of where we are in the process. So that project concept and development partner, that's where we are. So the PSRC reviewed responses, did interviews based on the short list, and we have, that we'll talk about in executive session, a preferred developer option for you from the PSRC. So I just went over all this. So again, why executive session? I'm not going to read each of these in detail, but Connecticut state law allows for it. It's for protection of proprietary information, fairness, town advantage, so that we get to negotiate without the prospective developer knowing where we are. And then there's also certain checks and balances with executive session that's built into that process. And you know, again, as we move forward with this, there'll be an informational meeting that will run with a preferred developer if one is selected. There'll be a public hearing that the council will hold prior to that developer signing a purchase and sales agreement between the town. So there'll be a lot of information on the development project out in the public once the council makes an initial selection of a preferred developer. So again, your next steps, as kind of reviewed before, you receive the RFP responses for the shortlist recommendations. Right now, tonight, we'll be talking to you about that PSRC process overview, finalist recommendations, and then giving you the option to select a finalist. And then moving forward, depending on what you want to do tonight, we could have additional check-in with that preferred developer if you wanted to do another interview. Again, future public hearings, town council formal decision to select them as the preferred development team. And, you know, historically, some of these things are forwarded to the RTM. This project has already been before them. We've shared this with them in the past. So with that, unless there's any questions on the larger process, we want to go into executive session.
Council Borderline?
When we come out of the executive session, are we announcing who was selected tonight?
If the council were to make a selection, yes.
I was just asking for anybody that's watching that might want to come tune back in. Are they,
Yes.
is there like an announcement, depending if that's the decision, it could be announced tonight?
If after executive session, the council makes a decision, then there could be a motion to select a preferred developer, to schedule a public hearing, which all of that would then have to be ratified at the next council meeting, March 3rd or so. I think that's around what it is.
Mark, I'm sorry?
When the next council meeting would be, that things would be ratified, and then a public hearing wouldn't be until April, if you went in that direction.
And just to note, it's just the preferred developer option. They aren't finalized until they're under contract with a purchase and sale agreement. So as John mentioned, there's a lot of steps to still happen. It's just initially the council saying, this is who our finalist is, and then all the additional public process takes place.
All set? Okay. Council Jones?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A motion to go into executive session. I hereby move that the members of the Town Council and John Burt, John Reiner, and Corinne Piazza go into executive session pursuant to General Statute Section 1-200 D, for the discussion of the selection of a site or the lease, sale, or purchase of real estate by the state or a political subdivision of the state concerning potential purchase and development of the former Groton Heights Elementary School property. So
Second.
moved.
Second, Pacino.
Yep, so moved, yep.
All right. Motion's been made to go into executive session, Jones and Puccino. We will be entering in at 8:18 PM. Well, I apologize. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are entering in at 8:18 PM. at 8:54 PM. Should I give you a brief now? Motion, okay. Council Jones, could you please read the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hereby move to recommend a resolution to appoint Eastern Connecticut Housing Opportunities, Inc., ECHO, as the preferred project concept/development team for the former Groton Heights Elementary School. Move into the next phase of the town's disposition process to finalize terms and legal agreements for the sale and the property, and to schedule a public hearing for April 7th, 2026. Forward the recommendation to RTM for review. So moved.
Second, Pacino.
Motion made by Jones and seconded by Pacino. Discussion. Okay, I think that's me. Okay. Eastern Connecticut Housing Opportunities, or ECHO, proposes to convert the existing school building into 17 new affordable housing units of various sizes that will provide affordable housing at a range of income levels. The structure will be preserved and include sustainability upgrades. The community-style apartment building will fit into the residential character of the neighborhood, as well as provide additional recreational and support spaces for public use. Additionally, ECHO proposes participating in the desired land swap with the Bill Memorial Library. The project will provide much-needed affordable housing at various income levels, remediation and preservation of the existing structure, recreational space, and is projected to be executed in a timely manner and return the property to a vibrant use that contributes to the town's tax roll. Any other discussion? Okay, I'm going to move to vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
No opposed, nothing, everybody, 8-0-0. So that concludes that. And I have nothing further to add. Next discussion, any open agenda items, nothing. A motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second, Pacino.
Wait a minute, that was good?
That's good. And Jones?
Good and Jones. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are out at 8:57 PM. Thank you, guys.